Hey everyone, Steven here, and welcome to my little library of horrors. Boy, it's been a while, huh? Been like 3 months, I think. Yeah, that's kind of what happens when summer vacation starts. All my kids are home and everybody needs attention for something, so. Yeah, now they're all back, and my youngest has officially started school, so I'm all of a sudden filled with an abundance of free time. It's kind of weird after 2 years of being home and someone always needing your attention at all times of the day. It's like, what do I do now? You know? But yeah, so really happy to be back, and guess I'll show you guys what I've been up to lately. Um, as far as what I'm reading, right now I'm currently reading The Entity by Frank DiFelita. And I'm also reading Friend by Danielle, starts with an H. I don't have it next to me, but yeah. Um, the Entity's okay so far. I'll probably do a review of that after I'm done. Friend is awesome, though. I can't wait to review that for you guys. That's really good. Um, but yeah. I guess I'll show you guys some of the pickups I've had recently. Um, so what's today? Monday? Saturday, I went to a book sale and a library sale. So I'll go ahead and start showing you guys what I found there. Alrighty, so first up, I found a copy of Haunted by Chuck Palahniuk. Probably butchered his last name, but I do that with almost every author anyway, so unless I hear somebody else say it, I'm going off what I'm guessing. Yeah, I already have like a copy, possibly two, but worth the trade. Yeah, also, again, I've probably said it before, but for those that don't know, this cover actually does glow in the dark. Yeah, I found that out the hard way in the middle of the night one time, so yeah. Let's see. Next, I picked up Haunted: Tales of the Grotesque by Joyce Carol Oates. Here we go. Now, I've heard of this author before, but why do I feel like I don't feel like I've seen horror by her? I could be completely wrong, obviously. Like I said, I've never read anything from her, but I have seen the name around. So, yeah, this may be worth my first entry into her work. Let's see. Next I picked up Survivor by Chuck Palahniuk. And then, would you look at that? Another Chuck Palahniuk. Lullaby. Pretty cool cover. I really like this cover. I don't know. I like it. I really like it. Like, usually I'm not crazy about, like, vast blank white spaces, but I think it works perfectly on this cover. I really like it a lot. I've heard this is a really good book, too, which I'm hoping so, because the only book I've ever read by Palahniuk was Diary. I hated it. Absolutely despised that book. Which sucks because it's like, that was the first time I've ever read anything by him, and I'm like, oh, this guy made Fight Club. He's got to be a good writer, I guess, but I mean, obviously Lullaby doesn't not Lullaby, excuse me, Diary doesn't, specifically put him as a bad writer. It just, in my opinion, was a bad book, but that's neither here nor there. Okay, next up is Heart-Shaped Box by Joe Hill. I think I've, oh, look at that. Somebody wrote a note on it. Read it. Excellent. Sick. And somebody put, not good. Well, I can't agree with either one because I haven't finished it, but I tried at one point too. And I don't know. Like I've said before, I'm not a huge music buff. Like, obviously I enjoy music and everything, but as far as like the main focus on a story, I don't know. It just doesn't interest me at all. Like, I tried. I think I got maybe 20 pages, 25 pages in, and then just didn't stick with me. Maybe I'll give it another try, but next up, I picked up Marvel Masterworks. Never seen any of these, but I mean, you know, anything comic related is always good to grab. You never know. You know, yeah, never heard of this, but it looks like it contains Tales of Suspense, numbers 59 and 81. And, you know, it's got the name Stan Lee and Jack Kirby on it, so, again, you have to grab it. But, you know, for a book that was originally $35, can't complain for $2, you know? Let's see. Next I picked up this cool little gem, which is a Paddington pop-up book. Now, I love pop-up books, honestly. I really wish they were still kind of a thing. Maybe they are, and I mean, obviously I don't read current children's books. I mean, not that there's anything wrong if you do. I love children's books. They're great. But, I always love picking up pop-up books because I just feel like they're so... Just, like, come on. Look at how cool that is. That's just awesome. You know what I mean? I think it's awesome. And I feel like, you know, especially finding them in really good condition with everything still intact and everything is, I feel is going to be something that becomes very scarce in the future. So, I always pick them up when I see them. Speaking of pop-up books, this was like an instant snag the minute I saw it, so... Oh, yeah. Batman the Animated Series pop-up book. How freaking sweet is that? That is just... I saw this right away and I was like, what is that? And I mean, like, this thing is just massive. There is so much to pull out and look at, and I think the back has, like, the full display on here. Yeah, here it is. So that's what it looks like, totally unfolded, but I'm scared to do it myself because I feel like I'm going to end up ripping something, and I'll be really upset at myself if I do. But, yeah, much like in, you know, most 90s kids, I loved Batman the Animated Series growing up. You know, very adult-oriented kids show. You know, definitely took a darker tone on the Batman theme and everything, so I just had to grab that. That's just awesome. Let's see. Next, I grabbed... Oh, it's true. It's true. The Kurt Angle biography. Yeah, I was a huge wrestling fan again in the 90s, early 2000s. I loved Kurt Angle. You know, his heel character is just fantastic. Like, he's just hysterical. Like, he's wonderful in the ring. He has excellent work. He's just hilarious. I've always loved Kurt's segments, and, you know, I'm really interested to actually check out his biography. I love biographies. I find them so fascinating. Like, you know, obviously I love fiction and everything like that, but sometimes people just live these fascinating lives, you know? And it's just crazy to see, like, where they come from and how they ended up in the position that they're in now. Just really awesome. So I am going to read this. I'm really excited. I hope one day I can meet him at a convention or something to get it signed. That'd be awesome. And then I picked up Foley is Good by Mick Foley. Another one of my favorite wrestlers growing up. I remember when this first came out, it was crazy to see, like, Mick Foley wrote a book, you know. If you didn't watch wrestling growing up, Mick was a character that is probably something we'll never see again. He almost played like this... He originally came in to at least the WWF as... I don't know if he came in as Cactus Jack originally, but essentially he has 4 personalities. There's this deranged, psychotic, like, just almost monster called Mankind. There's the peace-loving hippie dude Love, which is awesome. The crazy Western, like, just, you know, willing to put his body on the line kind of thing. Cactus Jack. And then there's regular Mick Foley, which is just kind of like this, regular dude. So, yeah, I'm pretty excited to get to this. I don't think I've read his other one. I don't think I've read any. The only book I've read by him was his Christmas book, which was awesome. It's just, all the wrestlers as little kids during Christmas and stuff. So that was pretty cool. Yeah, I'm pretty excited to get to that. Let's see. Next, I picked up books 1 and 2 in the Chronicles of Narnia series. Which I haven't read myself. I think I've seen the movie. I really don't remember. It's been years. But, yeah, sadly they didn't have all 7 books in the set. But, I mean, hey, something to work towards now, huh? Let's see. Next, I picked up Beyond Good and Evil by Friedrich Nietzsche. And, yeah. Now, I love philosophy, but I'm not super well versed in it. I do know the name. I'm not really sure what role he plays in philosophy. Excuse me, exactly. But that's just ignorance on my part. Like I said, I really enjoy philosophy. Sometimes you end up going down the wrong rabbit hole and you're just like, oh God, am I real? But I do that enough on my own time. I don't really need to dive into a book for it, but yeah, maybe one day I'll check this out. But yeah, if somebody could fill me in on the comments, like why he's so iconic within, I guess, philosophy, I would love to know. Like I said, I'm always willing to be corrected or informed or anything when it comes to books or anything in general. I love to learn, and I don't want to sound like an idiot when I speak. So, let's see. Next, I picked up this pretty cool little thing, which is called Tolkien, A Look Behind the Lord of the Rings by Lynn Carter. Pretty cool, which I assume it's kind of like basically maybe a history on how the books came to be. Let's see. Maybe there's like a quick... Let's see. Author's note, an introduction. Let's see. Printed in 1969. It's the first printing. Cool. Let's see. Yeah. That's what I assume, but I don't want to take too long focusing on it, but definitely pretty cool. I'm excited to have it. Let's see. Next, I picked up this really nice copy of Treasure Island and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, which, here, I'll show it first. It's definitely pretty cool. I'll try to get the light there. There we go. Definitely pretty cool. Yeah, they had a whole, set of it that were just like these, but, I was only mainly interested in the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I may end up kicking myself for not buying the whole set since I pretty much got this for free since it was so small, they said, so. But, shoulda, coulda, woulda, huh? This is probably one of my favorite finds from those sales. And it's an audiobook. It is called Old Time Radio Science Fiction, the Smithsonian Collection. Now, this is pretty cool. I've always kind of been interested by the old time radio things. One of my favorite Looney Tune cartoons was, who was it? Was it Sylvester or possibly Porky? It was someone that was they stayed at a haunted mansion and they would listen to the radio and it would be a program and what the person was talking about was actually happening within the house. So I've always been kind of fascinated by that ever since. So I'm really excited to have found this for $1. But what's really awesome about it is it has a 60-page book that has a brief history on every story inside with an exclusive foreword by Ray Bradbury, which is super cool. Let's see what kind of stories they have in here. Let's see. Yeah, you know what? I think the back of the box has all of them. So let's see. We have the Mercury Theater on Thin Air, which is the War of the Worlds, H.G. Wells. Let's see. Lights Out, which is by Arch Oboler. There is 0 Hour by Ray Bradbury. Mars is Heaven by Ray Bradbury. Operation Tomorrow, written by Robert A. Arthur and David Cogg. The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. Rocket from Manhattan, written by Arch Oboler. Let's see. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Jules Verne. Donovan's Brain by Kurt Sayudmak. I probably absolutely ruined that one. And The Martian Chronicles by Ray Bradbury. So yeah, I'm actually really psyched about that. That's awesome. But I'll give you a quick glimpse of the booklet here. Just pretty much the book here, and then there's Mr. Bradbury there. This is forward, which is like just about 4 pages, I think. 4.5, maybe 5 here. But yeah, see, it's even signed by him on the bottom. Not an authentic signature, of course. It's one of those ones where it's like he signed the paper and somebody printed it into the book. So I wish it was authentic. That'd be freaking awesome. But nonetheless, I'm pretty excited about that. Here we go. Let's get that in there. Okie dokie. So that's it for the sales that I went to. Now, for my mail calls. So some of these I bought straight up, honestly, from eBay. Others I've gotten from Marketplace. Let's see if there's anything else in here. And one of my 2 used bookstores. Excuse me. So, but this is where all the horror is going to come in now. So, first up is one I've never heard of. Never heard of the author, never heard of the book, and it's a zebra title, so this is called Moonfall by Tamara Thorne. Try to get it in the light here. There we go. Much better. Yeah, seems pretty cool. I like the cover. Nice and embossed here. Always love a good embossed cover. Yeah, looks pretty interesting. Next, I picked up Blind Panic by Graham Masterson. Masterson. I don't know. The last name just totally throws my tongue off. I don't know why. Like Masterton. I don't know. It just is always difficult for me to say. Alrighty. Let's see. Next up, I picked up Lifeblood by Lee Duigon. I don't know, I feel like I need a thesaurus for all these last names. But, I mean, this cover's just friggin' beautiful. And, like, not only did the cover sell me, but the story absolutely, like here, I'll just read the blurb. Excuse me. Millboro, New Jersey. Just the kind of place Winslow Emerson, MD, had in mind. A small township of yuppie couples who spent little time at home. Children shuttled between an overburdened school system and every kind of after-school activity. Parents too tired after a hard day's work in the city to notice anything odd in their darling children's behavior. A town ripe for the kind of evil Dr. Emerson specialized in. For Emerson was no ordinary doctor, and no ordinary mortal. He was a creature of ancient legend, of mankind's darkest nightmare, and for the citizens of Millboro, he had arrived where they least expected it, in their own backyards. So, definitely pretty cool, but I kind of peeked at a small review and somebody was like, it was hard for me to like break this suspension of disbelief because I'm picturing an obese vampire in a neighborhood. And I'm like, that's freaking awesome, man. Come on. It's like, you know, I get it. Like, of course, you know, vampires are supposed to be these suave and smooth, you know, handsome creatures. And things like that, you know, well built and everything. So like I'm just kind of picturing like just this really overweight doctor like floating in somebody's second story window wanting to be let in. It just sounds awesome. Like, you know, I really think humor is a really important aspect of horror, in my opinion. Like, I think it's really important to kind of break that tension. And, like, it works because you're not expecting it. So I feel like you can get a really genuine reaction out of a reader if you try to work in a little humor here and there into horror. I really think that works really well. Next up, I picked up The Tender Seed by Harry Ringle. Another really amazing cover. Yeah, you probably saw it on my community post if you saw the community post, obviously, but still got to include it. Super cool. It almost sounds a little bit like Stephen King's Firestarter. Almost. But let's see. Next up is Strangers in the Night by Peg Tyre. Cool little cover, honestly. I really like this little like window thing within the background here. Definitely think that's pretty cool. Let's see. Next up, I picked up The Night Boat by Robert McCammon. It's a double, but it was $1. You know, who's going to pass up a McCammon for $1, you know? Especially in the condition it's in. Like, just look at that spine. Like, you know, not mint, but not nearly as bad as I've seen it. Let's see. Next up, I picked up The Machines of Joy by Ray Bradbury. There we go. Next is... One second. Let me see if I can get this sticker off here. Meant to do that earlier, but... Come on, you. Hate when people put stickers on the covers. Like, what kind of monster does that nonsense? Yeah, I'll take care of it later. Next up is The Snake by John Godey. Really nice cover. Again, $1, so can't complain. Let's see. Next is called Body Mortgage by Richard Engling. Pretty nice cover. Very reminiscent, actually, of The Entity by Frank DiFolita. At least cover-wise. But I definitely love the little tag here. That's pretty cool. Let's see. Next up is Dark Reunion by Stephen R. George. It sounds like it's like a small-town werewolf horror. Which, hey. I feel like werewolves are suddenly starting to come back into popularity now, which is... awesome, because I was never a huge werewolf fan as a kid. I don't know. So they just never caught my attention. It wasn't like I thought they were boring or anything. I guess, like I said, they never just kind of came into my circle as I was really discovering horror, you know? Sort of like vampires. I hadn't gotten into them until maybe 3 or 4 years ago when I read Dracula and Salem's Lot. So, I'm thinking I'm going to have to make a werewolf read soon. I haven't read a werewolf book before, so we'll see. Let's see. These two I was actually really excited to find. Let's see. They are called Ice Prophet and A Darkness Upon the Ice by William R. Forstchen. Which... totally blew my mind, because the only books I know of by Forstchen are his 1 Second After series, which is, in my opinion, one of the best apocalypse stories, because it's so grounded, it's so real, it's honestly like one of the most probable causes. I don't want to say probable. It's one of the most realistic depictions of what could happen to us. Like, it's a very real possibility that the United States could get hit by an electromagnetic pulse and completely wipe us off the grid. And great series. Highly recommend checking it out. The first book terrified me, honestly. But yeah, so seeing that he wrote, like, fantasy, I was just like, what? I was like, I have to get these. So, yeah, I was really psyched to see these. I was like, oh, man. I think there's a third in the series, but I'm just really excited to have found that out. That was just super cool. Next, I picked up Rig Warrior by William W. Johnstone. And, yeah, unfortunately, there's a loose page in it, but this book usually goes for like anywhere from $20 to $25, so I picked it up for $4. So, not bad. I know there's a second one in the I don't know if it's a whole series. Oh, this is the second one. I need the first one. I just saw the number 2 up there. That's funny. But, yeah, pretty interesting. Let's see. Next, I picked up Amy Girl by Barry Wood. I have been finding a lot of Barry Wood's work. I'm almost positive Barry is a female. I'm not 100% sure. So I don't want to say he, she, whatever. Excuse me. But I've been finding a lot of their work lately, which is awesome. Because I feel like Barry's work is... It seems to be a little more... I don't want to say appreciated, but I guess a little more pointed out within the horror community, especially from Paperbacks from Hell. I do see this name get tossed around a lot. So, yeah, I think this is the third book I have by this person. Oops. Let's see. Next up is The Cursed by Dave Duncan, which is pretty cool. Well, found this in the horror section, but it says Del Rey Fantasy, so... Either way, it looked pretty cool. Figured why not, it was $1, so... What the heck? See? And speaking of horror, I found this in the sci-fi section, and it's called The Vanished by Jonathan Aycliffe. Very cool. Which, now that I think about it, seeing the name, I was like, oh, he wrote Naomi's Room, which is awesome. So I'm definitely interested to read this, because Naomi's Room was fantastic. That's probably one of the best ghost stories I've ever read. It was awesome. Very dark, a lot of, like, upsetting content, I'll be honest. Like, if violence against children is something you're uncomfortable with, I am, obviously I have kids, but it's a good story. It's a good story, but trigger warning, there is violence against children in it. Not incredibly graphic, thankfully, but there's enough implied to where your imagination can take it where it needs to go. But I'm really happy the cover is, way better than Naomi's Room is. Like, it's funny, in one of my book groups, we're doing like a 30-day book prompt, and one of the prompts is a book with an ugly cover, and that was the cover I chose, and everyone was like, okay, you win. But next is called The Judas Gene by Albert and Joanne Kleiner. Now, YouTube, don't strike me down for this. Yes, it has the swastika on it. But, I feel like books with that symbol are starting to become more and more rare, more sought after. So, but that's not the reason why I picked it up. It's just, it was in horror, and I love a good apocalypse story, and that's what it seems to kind of present itself as. So, yeah, never heard of it. So, and it was a cool cover. Speaking of Frank DiFolita so much, here's his book, Funeral March. Never heard of this one, Like I said, I found out about him through his book Sea Trial, and then I have The Entity, obviously, so... But I've never heard of this book. So it kind of seems like it's going to be more of like a cop drama, maybe a thriller kind of thing. So, yeah. Let's see. Next up, I picked up The Rock by Robert Doherty. Pretty interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure what it's really about. It looks kind of like an apocalypse story. Let's see. Yep, so it looks like... Yeah, definitely looks like that, so I'll read it real quick. In Australia, a U.S. Air Force computer operator receives a terrifying radio transmission that knocks out the world's communications. In New Mexico, a boozy college engineering professor is suddenly escorted into a waiting car by two armed military men. In New York, a tall, slender woman leaves her husband a note on the refrigerator saying that she's leaving, but can't tell him where she's going. In Colombia, a special forces officer breaks into a drug kingpin's bedroom and puts a bullet into a woman's brain before running into a waiting helicopter. And in England, a beautiful 23-year-old mathematician prepares for a journey that will change her life forever. They've all been invited to Australia's mysterious Ayers Rock, where a message of chilling significance is being sent by an unknown source. It's about a bomb. It's about a world about to be shattered. It's about the last few days they have left to save us all. So it definitely sounds pretty interesting. Excuse me, I need some coffee. Oh, much better. Yeah, sounds pretty interesting. And it looked like it was more kind of on the uncommon side. Wouldn't say rare, as it goes up to more of like a $20 range. So for technically $1.50, since I brought in books for credit, not a bad score. This one I picked up because I saw the co-author of Paperbacks from Hell, Will Erickson, had posted this, and I just needed it. I knew I needed to have it. And that book is called Evil is a Quiet Word by Theodis Carroll. And just look at this absolutely stunning cover. Just no words. No words. Like, it is just, I mean, the attention to detail and the strands of hair, just everything, honestly, just everything. And it has this absolutely gorgeous step back art here. Kind of like a close-up of the cover, but still, like, it like, finding a book pre-1980 that has step back art is, like, crazy to me. Like, this was printed in 1975, so not super far off from the 80s, but, you know, I feel like this is kind of when step back art was starting to become a thing, I guess. I don't know for sure. But yeah. Thanks, Will. If you ever happen to watch this, I really highly doubt it. You're probably super busy all the time, but if you do, thanks for posting that. That was cool. And last but definitely not least, it's probably my favorite find that I've had so far out of all of that. Which comes with a really interesting story, and it's kind of why I wanted to make this video in the first place. So last week I went to a bookstore I've never heard of before that's probably about 20 minutes from me. I want to say it's the Book Archers or Archer's Book or something like that, but he specializes in rare and unique books. So I was like, oh, cool. You know, usually I see like bookstores that are used bookstores, typical thing, whatever, that I love. But seeing like a rare bookstore, I was like, oh, that's cool. I got to go check that out. So I walked in and just books piled. It was heaven to me. Like, they were just anywhere you looked, you were bound to find something. So I asked the shopkeeper if he had a horror section, and he pointed me to the horror section. And very small, pretty much what I expected was, a bunch of first edition Kings, Kuntz, stuff like that. So, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, I'm about to go pick up that first print of Night Shift for $15. Like, that's not the book club edition. That's crazy to me. But then I saw one book I've never heard of before. Didn't know the author, never heard the title of the book before. And I was like, And I almost didn't get it because it doesn't have the dust jacket. But something really made me want to pick it up. And I was like, let me just see what this is. And the book is called The Complete Book of Terror by Leonard Woolf. So, obviously it does not, like I said, it doesn't have the dust jacket, but I'll show you the cool little art on the inside here. It's got this right here too. Where are you? There we go. So yeah, never heard of it or anything. So I was like, oh, this seems pretty cool. Let me see what it is. And it looks like it's a big compilation of short stories. And, I was kind of just browsing through. I didn't even look at the very first title. I was just kind of like, oh, there's books in here that I've been dying to read. Like, here's just some of them. So, I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream by Harlane Ellison. The Tattooer by Junichiro Tanizaki. The Lottery by Shirley Jackson. Let's see. They have... Who else is in here? Let's see. The Monkey's Paw by W.W. Jacobs. The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. Let's see. The Pit and the Pendulum, The Black Cat, both by Poe. But yeah, just like a really big The Squaw by Bram Stoker. Like, it's just a huge list of these really amazing stories. Some I've never heard of, but like I said, some I've been dying to read for years. But then I almost didn't get it. But then I saw the very first title in the book. The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas by Ursula K. Le Guin. So, what's really fascinating about that to me is back when my wife was doing college, she let me do, she had like a free course she could take or whatever. So I was like, hey, do you mind if I just do like a creative writing course? Since it's like a free credit. She said, yeah, sure, go for it, whatever. So, during the course, the ones who leave Omelas, I just want to make sure I say that right. My memory is completely garbage if you haven't noticed. The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas. So that was one of the first stories we read during that course. And I was like, I loved it. I loved the story. I thought it was fascinating. The concept of this town that is essentially a picturesque place to live. No one's sick. No one's poor. Everyone has somewhere to live. There's always crops. You know what I mean? Like, it's this utopia. But the reason it's able to strive as a utopia is because they essentially choose a person to lock away from the rest of society, and they basically suffer. They get barely, like, not even food, like gruel. There's no bathroom. They're locked in constantly. There's no light, nothing. So it's essentially, like I said, this utopia only exists based off the suffering of a human being. And it tells the story of, like, people who, like, in order to live in Omelas, you have to see why Omelas exists. And some people choose to leave Omelas for that reason. They can't accept the fact that their life is so wonderful because someone else is suffering. And I just love the concept of that idea. It really made me think. And so for the final of that exam, it was, he gave us a list of things we could do. And one of the options was to, I guess, write almost a response to a story we've read during class. And I was like, I want to write a response to The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas. And I wrote The Ones Who Return to Omelas. And it was a story about a man who had left Omelas 30 years ago and found his way to this mountaintop village of people who walked away from Omelas. They couldn't do it. They couldn't handle it. So they made their own village to live in that tried to sort of mimic what Omelas is without the need of suffering of someone else. And the teacher loved it. My instructor loved it. He even emailed me and was like, he's like, hey, would you be okay if I use this for future classes when I explain this assignment? And, it was just kind of like, I don't know. It was really mind blowing to me. Like, wow, someone liked what I wrote. Like, not just liked it, loved it. It was like, I hadn't written since high school at that point, I don't know. I'm really hard on myself when it comes to my writing, even just in general. I'm not really nice to myself. So, having someone kind of like compliment me like that on something I'm really passionate about, I don't know, it's like when I do feel that inspiration to write, I always kind of have those words in the back of my head, the first sentence, it was just like, this is just ... amazing, and I don't want to sound like I'm full of myself or anything, it just, I don't know, just felt kind of nice. So, seeing that, I was like, okay, I'm not really a big person that believes in fate kind of thing, but I don't know. How do you argue that, How do you argue? What could you possibly argue against that other than mere coincidence, obviously, but I don't know. Something in me just doesn't feel like it was coincidence, So, I brought the book to the shopkeeper, obviously, and which kind of started a conversation. He asked me what I was into, and I said, I'm a horror reader, and I was prepared for the typical, well, I know King, blah 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 blah, But it turns out he's actually very knowledgeable, which was like just kind of crazy to me, Like he told me this fantastic story of Edgar Allan Poe's very first published work, which I didn't even know what it was, but he knew all about it. It was a book of poetry called I think he said it was Tamarang, and he said it's one of the top 5 most sought after books in the world amongst book collectors because there was only 100 published. He only ever sold either 10 or 20 copies and then took the rest. Nobody knows what he did with them. And it's not his name put as the author. It's called Tamarang, a collection of poems written by a Bostonian. So, I found something out about my favorite author I never knew before. So it was like, this whole hour-long conversation about, Edgar Allan Poe and like rare books and stuff like that. And at the end of it all, he's told me this thing where I was like, it's something that really stuck with me, and I think will stick with me for a really long time. And it just kind of speaks to why I love collecting, especially secondhand. He looked at me and he said, every book has 2 stories. The one inside of it and the one about it. And that just, like I said, that was just like, wow, that's incredible. Because it's like, look at this. I haven't read almost any of the stories inside of this. But my story about finding it, finding the ones who walk away from Omelas and then learning about Poe and things like that. And, he's actually keeping an eye out now for some rare titles that I let him know about. So, you know, I kind of built this bridge, I guess, with a very knowledgeable person in the world of books. So, yeah, you know, that it was really cool, really cool. But yeah, so that's my update for now, guys. Like I said, now that my kids are in school, I'll be able to focus a lot more on getting videos up and reading and reviewing and things like that. So, you know, if you're still subbed, thank you. I appreciate it. You know, like I always say, I don't do this because I want to get famous or make this a job or anything. You know, I just love books and I love talking about books. And, you know, sometimes it's, you know, it feels a little less lonely, you know, being by myself talking to you guys, you know. But yeah, let me know what you think of the new video recording style. Shout out to Nick over at the Book Graveyard. He had suggested I kind of flip my phone sideways to do this, and I'm hoping the quality's better now because I did get a new phone finally. So I'm really hoping the video quality is much better. But yeah, again, shout out to Nick over at the Book Graveyard. Make sure you go check out his channel. He's got lots of fascinating stuff. I love his videos. But yeah, that's going to be it for me today, guys. And, you know, thanks again for watching. And be safe. Have a good day.